Okay. Well, can I actually ask you to sit on this side, Ellen?
Sure.
Okay, great. Okay, well, welcome to this week's third Thursday, or this month's third Thursday, and we'll be talking with Owen Guthrie from UAFC Learning on topics relating to Quality Matters.
Quality Matters, yeah.
Okay.
Cool.
I don't have a prepared spiel, or at least a fairly light prepared spiel, but lucky we have Paula here today. She can be our audience for those who aren't actually here or for those come later. So maybe just talk a little bit about your situation. You teach online?
That's all I've ever done. Oh no, I've taught face to face.
Okay.
And I think what I'm teaching online next semester. I'm developing my course though.
Okay.
But eventually, I'm pretty sure my department will want me to teach. What is it called? Hybrid.
Blended or hybrid?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Blended and hybrid.
Okay.
Well, what's blended?
Blended is a face-to-face course that takes advantage of some of the capacities, the internet capacities.
That's blended. Yes, yeah. Blended. And then what's hybrid?
Hybrid is a similar thing. Hybrid is a course that has asynchronous online components as well as synchronous components.
Okay, so yeah, so blended and hybrid.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I probably have face-to-face, have online, because I want to keep my classes online, homework online, and screen.
Okay.
Things like that.
Video cons. Good
Yeah.
time. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, so Quality Matters is a national nonprofit group that came about as part of a federal Department of Ed grant about 15 years ago. And the grant proposal was, wouldn't it be neat if we had some sort of systemic approach to be able to evaluate quality in online programs? There was a little bit of skepticism at the time whether these online things are great. So these folks started to put together systems for evaluating online courses.
Online teaching or online?
Just the course.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and really so there's so many variables involved in delivering a course that they explicitly don't address any of the variables associated with delivery. All that Quality Matters addresses is the design, the static design of the course itself. So
it's irrespective of content.
It's irrespective of the content is only relevant. There's a content expert who will look at your content just to make sure it's up to date and appropriate and all those kind of things. But it's irrespective of style. So your presence in the course isn't evaluated. So it's things like learning objectives. Are the instructions clear and easy to follow? Do the assessments align with the objectives? Do the activities align with the assessments? Those kinds of things. So structural sort of quality versus, how many hours a week are you spending in the course? How many hours a week are you asking students to spend in the course? That's the kind of thing they don't involve.
Regardless of the type of class, whether it's online,
Absolutely.
blended, face-to-face, whatever.
Yeah, and so Quality Matters it's not really focused on face-to-face classes. It's really for online and blended classes. Yeah, and so what they did is they put together this rubric, and I handed out this flyer here, and it's a 43-point rubric, 43 standards. And sorry, Gary. One of these. And you can see inside the inside flap, they have all 43 points listed out there. And so they cover things like course overview and introduction. Is the introduction clear and can students find where to go to find the various components? Are they introduced to the purpose and structure of the course? Etiquette expectations, institutional policies clearly expressed, technology requirements, prerequisite knowledge, technical skills, introduction by the instructor, and our students asked to introduce themselves. That's all just under the first standard. There's 8 main standards.
So how do you, have you counted them? It's like, how did you get the numbers, like the 43?
43, I just happen to know that list has
Okay.
43 things in it, yeah. So they put together this rubric, and the rubric fits as a piece of a larger sort of framework that they have for peer review of courses. So Quality Matters is not an administrative review of quality in courses, it is driven by and staffed by almost volunteer-based faculty. So it's all faculty peers who do all of the evaluation. You have to have taught online in the last 18 months to sit on a review committee. Committees are comprised of 3 faculty members. And you have to pass some certifications in order to be able to be a faculty reviewer. And each of the standards is evaluated by each reviewer. And it only takes 2, what they call MET certifications, or two faculty decide, yes, this standard is met in order for it to pass. So it's not a unanimous type thing. If someone says no, that the course doesn't have this, but the other two faculty say yes, it does, that passes. So in aggregate, it's got to get 85% or 85 points of the 99 available. And that's true for all the standards. So it's true overall, and then individually, you're not held to have each standard at 100%. They're looking for like a strong, better than average score. So 85% for any given standard is the rule within Quality Matters. So do you have a good introduction? Well, it's kind of good, but it's not that great. Does it meet an 85% standard? Yeah, it's as good as, it's reasonably good. What about their learning objectives? Are the learning objectives all measurable? Well, at least 85% of them are measurable. That would pass. So how it works is the University of Alaska is a Quality Matters, and University of Alaska Fairbanks is a Quality Matters institution, as is Anchorage, I believe, and I believe UAS is also. And we're talking about, Chris Lott is in talks to maybe sort of unify that, the different faculty working together, so some collaborative opportunities there. So basically, if you're interested in having one of your online classes looked at by Quality Matters, there's a couple different ways you can do it. One is you can just simply take the rubric and go through it point by point. This is a rubric workbook.
Okay.
It's long, and it has the entire rubric written out
Well,
in detail. And you can look at each standard and ask yourself, this is kind of a self-assessment, like, do I meet this standard? And you say, oh yeah, that's a good idea if I have students introduce themselves in the first week. Or, oh yeah, I need to have an introduction of myself in there. Or do you address netiquette, or how students should behave in your course in an explicit way in your syllabus? Do you have a statement in there that addresses access to learning disability services or disability services? So each different standard, you can do a self-assessment. Another way, so that's one way you could make use of the Quality Matters rubric. Another way would be is if you decide to have an informal review amongst either e-learning or some faculty peers, where you just ask some other folks to say, hey, could you go through the rubric with my course, kind of informally, and take a look at it and see if you think it meets the standards. And if it does or doesn't, you can make modifications as a result.
And if it doesn't,
so in an informal review, there's no consequences. Or a self-review, it's fine. You just sort of
get an F.
Right. We'll give you an F and we send you home.
Or reject my syllabus and say redo.
Yeah.
Okay.
So at the most sort of I won't say aggressive, but the most intense level would be to go after an official QM sponsored review, which is e-learning is facilitating some of those for faculty right now. And we work with you, work with your course a little bit, take a look at it, kind of polish it up before we send it in for review. And then the price for that is $1,000. And e-learning is currently paying for those. We were able to purchase a package where we're having a few courses from UAF go through the process. We've already had a couple certified here on campus. And in which case, we look at your course ahead of time, so get it to where we think it's going to pass without a problem, and then we send it off, and then 3 external reviewers and yourself are going to go through the process of the review. And that takes about, you have a question, Gary?
So I guess the question would be, why would I want to do that?
Yeah. And who
Well,
pays $1,000?
Right.
Yeah. So
Like, why would the university want to do that?
well, so there's a couple different advantages. There's just talking about the course level at first. Having other people look at it and go through with a fine-tooth comb and give you critical feedback on it is really helpful. I've sat in on 3 of these processes. Now, my own course I went through the certification process, so I can speak of that in lengthy detail. But even though I thought my course was pretty much there, they found some things that really did help improve the course. A new set of eyes, and there's 3 people looking at it,
Right.
and that's inevitably helpful because they're looking at it fresh. No matter how often you look at it, or even once we help you with a course, we've looked at it a few times and we can't see it fresh anymore either.
Okay.
So that's really helpful.
Okay.
That's just sort of a real baseline. It's positive. Then obtaining the actual QM certification, there are obviously marketing benefits to that. This courses in our program, for instance, are QM certified. That's good. That communicates to students that you're taking quality seriously, and that they know that it's been looked at and designed up to a certain standard of.
Yeah, but the thing is like students would know what QM certified means.
Students don't necessarily,
Yeah.
but even for certain programs, people are becoming more and more aware of that certification, of that
Okay.
standard, and I think it communicates things. So there's internal and external communications of quality, and internally within the UA system, I think that's something, especially for courses that may be multiple listed around the system. Having one that's QM certified says, yeah, this course is here at least. The others we don't know about.
Okay, so the ones that are QM certified, would the courses be made, the syllabus be made available for us to see?
No,
Okay.
unless the instructor teaches in the open or some form like that. QM
Okay.
doesn't imply any aspect of openness. You can have a course that's entirely Blackboard and entirely closed that is QM certified, that students won't see it. You can advertise it as this is a QM certified accounting course, but no one's going to see that until they actually enroll and take the course.
Oh, okay, because I just thought maybe if the instructors are willing to share, because what I'm doing now is I'm basically cutting and pasting from a lot of other syllabus while I'm putting mine together, like what looks
Sure.
good. But this is going to really work because I'm
Yeah.
looking at like what am I supposed to be doing with the learning objectives and
Measurable learning objectives. Yeah.
and my goals and objectives and their learning objectives is like I get a little confused about that. So,
Yeah. And that's something that, working with a designer, that we can certainly help with.
Okay. I'm just trying to get it through the system first. It
Sure.
needs to be approved.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's the normal route. I think for me, the greatest benefit is that it's like a performance piece, right? No matter how long you practice the piano and you play it for all your friends and relatives, when you play it in public, the pressure and the scrutiny is entirely different that you place on yourself. So going for a formal review, it is a very different process. That said, not every style of course QM has a very specific mindset as to what they think a course should look like. Not all of our online courses, which might be great learning experiences, are going to look like a QM quality course. They have very specific structural ideas on what a course should look like. Your course may be fantastic. You may be the most fantastic online teacher in the world, but it may not be something that's going to pass a QM review. You may be much more of an ad hoc online teacher. In general, in our experience, in my experience, that's not the case. Most folks who are maybe somewhere where we both are, sort of in the middle of the road, kind of making it up as we go along, and being
That's how I feel like.
being,
I'm making it up as I'm going along.
being explicit about
Yeah.
our course structure ahead of time, and really, I went through my course. I printed the whole course out on paper and went through and draw diagrams and had all my learning objectives, and of course had a document where those were connected to learning activities and assessments, and had to kind of cross list to make sure everything was accounted for. That process, even though I've taught the course 3 times now, I've never done that. So I found a lot of things that, I shouldn't have done that this way, or I have this activity here, but it doesn't relate to my objectives. It doesn't relate to anything, which you wouldn't think that would exist, but it does.
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
Yeah, because
So-
I'm thinking case studies. I need case studies.
Yeah.
and-
So by going through the process, it's a
Okay.
really beneficial process, but that doesn't mean that you have to go for the official process. You can also do it informally, but you're more likely to do a much better job if there's money at stake and external critique, on the line.
Well, I think that probably students will becoming more and more selective because of
Sure.
course we're going to online teaching.
Yeah.
But even how the syllabus looks, But I don't know if students actually see the syllabus before they actually join the class, but I've seen some syllabus like it really, really put a lot, the instructor put a lot of work into it, like having colored photos of the professors. Like, I don't know if you know Sina.
Yes, yeah.
Oh yeah, my gosh, her syllabus is really creative.
Yeah.
You know.
And so some of our courses are all in Blackboard, and some of them have a more public-facing WordPress site associated with
Yeah,
them.
because there's
in
no
addition,
face-to-face, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah. So there's all those different options, and you can play in that space and have a lot of different solutions for whatever fits you and your cohort. So if you did, the nice thing about Quality Matters, as I mentioned, is it's all peer-driven. So, and it's designed to be very collaborative and constructive, and not at all in any ways is someone going to write you back and say, this is terrible. I can't believe you're doing what this. Basically, once you enter the process cycle and you put your course up for review, as long as you're willing to hang in there and make all the changes that they're going to suggest, you will pass, because they're going to tell you everything you need to do to pass. The initial review takes about 3 to 4 weeks, and then depending upon your score or their verdict on whether or not you meet their expectations, you're going to have some revisions to make, and those might be extensive and they might be very minor. It's possible that those revisions will occur during the review process. In my case, I communicated to my chair, the chair of the review committee of 3, that, hey, if you see anything that's wrong, let me know immediately, because I'm here, I'll make the change. And so he did. He told me a few things in the first couple of weeks, and I just made those changes. So by the time it got to the end, I got a pass because the changes were made. Hello.
So where's the review committee located?
So there's
Committee.
a couple thousand faculty or several thousand faculty across the U.S. who have taken a series of courses through Quality Matters, and they've become peer reviewers. And there's an introduction to the Quality Matters rubric. That's the first course you have to take, and then you have to take a course, the peer review committee course, in order to be a peer reviewer certification. And then there's the last one, the master reviewer course you take in order to be a chair of the peer review committee. So these 3 faculty, one of whom has to be in your discipline.
I was going to say.
Yep.
My discipline's Indigenous Studies, so.
Right. So they find something as close as they can. So.
And it cannot be archaeology or anthropology. So.
Right. And that person generally isn't super scrutinizing the content. They're mostly just, there's a few standards that relate to content, and it's mostly, are the resources appropriate? Are the materials up to date? Those kinds of things. So it just sort of ensures as good a level of quality as they can. But there are reviewers there's 3,500 colleges and universities in the U.S., and there are faculty from thousands of them. So there's a lot of people out there.
So would you be able to give me an example of what's inappropriate content or material?
Something that's really old, like a textbook that's 30 years out of date.
Okay.
Biology course, and you're using a textbook from 1975.
Okay.
That's inappropriate. You should be using a more modern textbook, especially.
Actually, I'm going through that right now.
Mhm.
The book that I used, because I'm teaching this class again, but I'm just kind of redoing it. I taught it before. It's like the book on design is like, I think it was 1979, and I used it before, but it's the best book. I like it, but there's a newer book,
Mhm.
and I don't particularly like it, but it's in 2013, so I'm going to probably have to use the newer book. Although I would like to make copies of some stuff from the older book,
Sure.
because it's not really date oriented.
Right.
It's process oriented.
Sure.
So I'm like, okay, so now I'll have to ask somebody, how do I do that? Make copies of one book, or to maybe copies of an article or a chapter of the book that I really like, but it's too outdated. But use the 2013 book that I don't really like, but it's, it's appropriate.
I would say, so what you do is when you submit your course, you fill out what's called a course worksheet, which is your opportunity as a course representative or instructor to articulate all the different design decisions you've made and why you've done these things. And in that case, if you're using a book there is a much more modern one, but you don't like it, just saying so, that will cover you. Say, this is the reasons why I, as an instructor, chose this other resource because it's better.
I'm
And
sorry,
they'll
it's
say,
not 79, it's 97.
Yeah.
So,
Whatever.
Yeah.
But anyway, my point is you have an opportunity to articulate the design decisions you've made, and sort of defend those a priori, so that and they're really there to support the process and to facilitate you making a good course. It really is, I think, in general, a very collegial and supportive experience.
Oh, okay. So
Yeah.
that would be the only example of inappropriate material is just outdated.
That's the first one that comes to mind.
Okay.
Yeah. For instance, if you're teaching a course on, astrophysics, and you have materials in there that are astrology, or something entirely inappropriate or unrelated to the actual field, that's something that a disciplinary expert would say, "Whoa, these aren't. They're not aligning here. They're
Okay.
teaching this subject, and they're using materials for this other topic that aren't credible or something."
Okay.
Yeah, in general, I don't think that's not really a concern. So anyway, you prepare this course review sheet, you submit it, they select a committee contacts you, you have a conference call where you all get to meet each other, and you kind of set your working relationships and some dates, and whether or not it's a chance for you to, again, articulate what sort of relationship you'd like to have with the review committee. And then depending upon how that goes, they'll either work with you for the next few weeks, or they'll get back to you in 3 or 4 weeks and say, "This is what we found. This is what needs to be done. The rest of it is great." And then you have 20 weeks to make those changes. So you're gonna. There's no reason why you can't make those changes in that amount of time.
No, and also just thinking because I'm developing this class for next semester,
Mhm.
I'll probably be teaching it again next year. So
Sure.
it's probably something I would start working on for changes for the next.
Right. And Quality Matters is one of the things that they require is that the course have been taught before. They don't want to certify new courses because they're so left.
Yeah.
They need to have the kinks worked out a little bit. So they prefer if they've been taught a couple times.
Okay.
And I think that's a reasonable expectation.
Yeah.
If in my case, I'm always kind of modifying and revising my course. So yes, I've taught it before a couple times, but the course I submitted was a revised version.
What course are you teaching?
That was instructional design.
Okay.
Yeah, I submitted that in the spring.
Mm.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
How many folks are currently reviewers here?
see, I'm a reviewer. Heidi Olson in our shop, and Chris Lott. Chris Lott is the only one who's actually done reviews. He's done 3, which qualifies him to be a master reviewer. And he hasn't taken that course yet, I don't believe. I'm trying to get some reviews throughout the UA system, perhaps, or outside, to eventually get to be a master reviewer. That's all I know about. There's a couple of UAA, and that's all I know about in the UA system.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if somebody were to want the process here, those are the 3 folks who would be most likely to be looking at that,
Yep.
the local review, for lack of a better term.
Sure. Local review, you can work with it. The entire instructional design team has been through it's called the APPQMR, which is the Quality Matters is really big on the acronyms. So that's basically the basic course on how to use and apply the rubric, the Quality Matters rubric. So any designer can talk with you sort of from a knowledgeable place about the QM rubric. And yeah, if you're interested in doing more, Chris Lott's the person to contact. He's the QM coordinator here on campus for the moment. So, and that goes true for anyone, anywhere. Right now, we have about 15 or so faculty who are at various levels of interest and stages in the QM review process.
Oh,
I think we have, so my course is gone. Nicole Cundiff's has a course that's passed. I think we have at least a couple other courses that are currently under official review and a few more on the way. So probably not all those 15 will actually go through the full form review process, but maybe 8, 9, something like that.
Nice.
Some campuses, I talked to somebody at University of Arizona, and they have 100 faculty on campus who are all certified reviewers, and they manage their own review and Quality Matters system entirely on the faculty side of the house, not at all from the Center for Teaching and Learning or the technology folks, which is a really nice model. I think in a lot of ways, Center for Teaching and Learning, those kind of academic excellence centers, they try and have a conversation about quality on campus, but without an external sort of authority, that's a difficult conversation to have. But these folks give us a common ground that we can all agree, yeah, okay, this, at least for the design side of the course, this is some simple standards that we can adhere to. And for most courses, it'll get us a long ways towards achieving a quality student experience. And that's one of the things I forgot to mention, is that the entire rubric and system is designed to assess the course from a student perspective, not from a faculty perspective. So that's why it's great to have 3 new people come in your course. And for instance, I teach another LMS, I teach in Canvas. And 2 of my reviewers had a hard time getting in the course, even though I sent them pretty explicit instructions on how to do it. And at first I thought, well, this is their problem. But then I came to realize that actually this is my problem, because I'm asking the same thing of my students. So I had to come up with a better way to get people in the course, because if they had the problem, then students are having that problem. So it's a really valuable process.
It sounds good.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't see, anything that helps us relate to our students.
Yeah. Yeah.
But then I'm thinking, then why aren't there students that are reviewers?
Right. Well, I think that you need to have, one of the things is, like I said, you have to have taught for 18 months to be a reviewer. And I think having that collegial faculty relationship is really important, because you need to know what it's like to sit in that seat as an online instructor in order to be an effective reviewer. Because there has to be some empathy there to say, when I teach my class, or when I've taught, I've had these problems. I see you're doing this, you might consider this solution. Whereas if you get either an administrator, someone who doesn't teach online, or a student who's only taking classes online, the place from that, where that voice is coming from, it doesn't have the authority and the collegial connection. I think that's the reason. So it's all faculty driven.
That should be actually part of the assessment of the instructors.
Right. It's assuming that you are, and as an instructor, you are getting student feedback, right?
Well, actually, because we just got our student feedback the other day,
Mhm.
but I would think that having a teaching an online class they would have different questions, like than probably the regular questions that they give students.
Right.
So so I don't really know what questions they ask the students, but
So I know that Chris was working on a different, or sort of an improved feedback response form, and I know that there are some optional questions that you as an instructor can opt in to have students asked.
oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I
And-
never ever considered, like,
Yeah.
how did you find this online course? Like
Yeah.
this course online?
Yeah.
Was it easy to
Right.
for you to
But as an
navigate?
instructor, you do have the potential to go in and add extra questions.
Yeah, But I never
and
thought to
surveys,
ask those
so-
questions.
And I just try. I
Yeah.
try and ask students directly, "How's it going?" You can ask them even this week. Hey, we're a couple weeks in. How's everything going? Any confusion? How are the assignments? What do you think of the layout? I just try and have that going at all times, so that when I get to the end, there's no surprises. Like, I hated this course. Really? We should have said something.
Yeah,
I have a fairly
Yeah.
small cohort, so.
yeah.
It's, listening to this, a couple of things come to mind. One of which is, looking at the rubrics and thinking, yeah, the focus is hybrid classes and online classes, but the rubric set at a minimum would, this is not a knock on higher ed teaching, but a lot of folks who come into higher ed teaching have no clue on how to teach.
Yeah.
And that would be something that could easily be incorporated at faculty development level and say, if you're new to this, here are some things to think about.
Right.
At least not necessarily to hold them to that, but to say, here's a process you could use in developing that class.
Yeah.
I just think about that. The other thing that struck me is, and I think you were asking about it, earlier, how do folks know about this stuff? Especially once you get a class that's certified, is it a big deal? Who knows? Why would it be? But it could be a marketing thing. You could be having your department or the university as a whole be, pointing out that, if you're looking for quality teaching, we have this process, and here are classes that already have reached that.
Yeah.
That
So-
pinnacle.
So Quality Matters themselves has a database of all of the certified courses in the U.S. So my course is there. in addition, I have seen some departments, so UAA or UAS had an ad in the back of the Sunstar actually that said, our courses are QM certified or something like that. It wasn't clear as to how many, but they said, some of our courses are QM certified. And I think you're going to start seeing more of that kind of thing from UAF as more courses become certified. I think, as I mentioned to Gary, there's also a real advantage if you're a fairly new faculty member. There's an incentive to go through the process, and if you're producing your own course, because it's something else you can add to your CV. Yes, I created an online course, and yes, it met this national standard for quality. That's something else to consider for different groups. And I think you're right that, boy, in higher ed, generally there's little to no instruction as to how to teach. Right. We try and help with that. I know you guys try and help with that. The Office of Faculty Development tries to help with that. I know Madera the other day was talking to a cohort of new faculty, kind of saying, these are all the services we offer. This is how we can help you design courses. But yeah, if someone comes into a discipline, say a hard science, which stereotypically doesn't pay as much attention to that as others, and they themselves aren't interested in that at all, they're a postdoc or a graduate student perhaps, then who's there watching to say,
exactly.
Yeah.
I just look at that and it's such a broad area that somebody new to that, because somebody hired by the university and says, oh, by the way, you're teaching whatever 301. It's like, oh,
yep.
And here's the person who did it before, and you have no sense of, is it good? Is it awful? Is there a flow to it? Or what are the things I need to know?
And so many people in I teach and in other faculty development settings, we talk to them about, where did you learn how to teach? And so many people said, well, I just teach how I was taught. And oftentimes that's not
a terribly effective
model. Not the most effective model. It's not it's not something that they've reflected on. I think, I could have done it better in this way. So that's often an interesting and fun door to open. Saying, well, you were taught in great lecture halls at whatever, University of Illinois, and 600, 700 people in a class, and it's very much non-interactive. It's a small institution. You have other opportunities. We could do that here.
Right.
So, yeah, but QM doesn't address those things. It doesn't address cohort size. It doesn't address discussion groups or anything like that, like how they're structured. Just the basics, is the basic structure. And they're really big on this one aspect of course design called alignment. And I should mention that because that's a good take-home message. Some of the aspects of the rubric, I'll find the illustration that's in here, I think, they consider to be critical to a successful course design. And those are ones they refer to as the alignment standards. I'm not going to find that illustration. But basically, it builds off of the learning objectives. The course learning objectives need to be directly aligned with the module learning objectives, so that like a building structure, like the Parthenon is the diagram they use. And then from that flows the activities, the assessments, the course materials, and the course technology. Each of those 4 elements is supported by and supports your objectives. So if you have, if one of your objectives is, discuss and critical thinking and a lot of interaction, and your course technology is, Blackboard with no discussion groups, how's that going to happen? You're not doing that. You need to be employing discussion groups to reach discussion-based learning outcomes. And again, if you're expecting students to master a particular type of, the example they use is a type of math problem, that you should be able to solve these math problems, and you have a lecture on the topic, but there's no homework on the topic, there's no activity associated with the content, then that's a structural issue. So
yeah, that's really good to know. I guess what the problem I have is some of the syllabus have, and I've been copying some of the syllabi, I guess, is that they're some of the syllabi say the instructor's goals and objectives. And I can understand it. These are my goal for my overall goals for this class.
Yeah.
And my objectives. How am I going to get them to learn?
Right.
What I want them to learn. But the learning outcomes is where it's like, I guess I have a hard time with learning outcomes because for me, it's teaching objectives. It's like I can teach them, but I can't make them learn. So it's like I have a hard time conceptualizing what a learning objective is.
Right.
But I guess
That's a great question. So
good.
they
'Cause
use.
I feel like it was a stupid question.
No, it's a good question.
Yeah.
So they use the old standard Bloom's taxonomy in this system, and what they look for are measurable learning objectives using the verbs from Bloom's taxonomy. So very simply, can students, if you say you want them to discuss, then your objective is students will discuss this following topic. They will reflect on the following topic. They will compare and contrast the following two topics. Those are just straightforward verbs, things students are doing that you can measure that they've done that. Did they discuss? Well, yes, they did. I can see it right here. They discussed, and did they?
But I can't see if they reflected.
Reflection. Well, if you assign them a reflection assignment and you have a rubric, if you want to, you can have a rubric associated with it. Does it display, clear and critical thinking? Do they articulate their point effectively? So that you're evaluating their reflection.
Yeah.
That's the way you get you have a structure in place that's supporting your learning objective. So the first step is a measurable learning objective. If your learning objective is I want students to learn about cross-cultural studies, there's no way to measure that.
Yeah. Okay. But
if you want them to discuss cross-cultural studies in or interracial relationships in rural Alaska in the 1930s, you can see that they discussed those.
Okay.
That area.
I guess what I have is like I don't have rubrics, and it's like
You don't have to have rubrics. Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Because most of my discussions online are essay style,
Mm-hmm.
and so I personally have a hard time grading because I'm grading on a lot of things. One is just basically structure and grammar, and so I need to find a rubric to be able to tell them why I gave you this grade.
Right.
And basically what I do is right now the measurable is it needs to be 250 words.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. That's a minimum.
Mm-hmm.
So I know what 250 words look like now. So it's.
Are you assessing the content at all, like qualitatively or just quantitatively?
Well,
'Cause that's
quantitatively, that's one way to grade them.
Right, because you can just sit there and
But I
give
don't
you
know how to
250
grade them
words.
down. Like I don't know really like to set 5 points. But so those are rubrics that I have to develop.
So when they're responding, when they're writing their response, are they responding to a prompt that you've given them?
Mhm.
Why are they
I'm
writing
saying
that?
read this.
Yep.
And give what I've done is I give some students every week. I give different students the assignment to answer the questions that I've asked.
Okay.
It used to be I had all students do that, but then they copy from each other, and it was boring for me to read the same answers all the time.
Right.
And so, I just have a couple students in each class. Depends on the size of my class. Then I have other students tell me, what did you read that you want to share with us? That was really important. Develop your essay of 250 words or less, or more, minimum. But what I see is that first of all, they're not really developing an essay. They don't have a topic sentence, and so it's like some of them. These are 400 level classes. I expect them to know how to do essays.
Right.
But then I look at. I tell them there's things that I tell them that I want them to include in the essay.
Okay.
So I look for what have they concluded in the essay, and what can they bring in outside of that reading. Like I want them to do research outside that reading, and bring it in. Like can it be something that's happened locally that you can bring in that you can apply to what you've just read? So I have a rubric in my head, but I guess what I need to do is put it.
It can be really helpful to students if you put it into writing.
Okay, I mean, I do put it in writing, but I don't have it like clearly defined.
The more defined that you have, besides as Owen pointed out, the students then can look at it and go, "Oh, I don't have a topic sentence." They go, and then for you to look at it and go, "Yep, topic sentence. Check. There's 5 points or 20 points or however you do it." I've checked that off. They got it. And yep, got all 5 sections. Perfect. We're good. I mean, it helps you be it helps avoid the boredom piece, of looking at all these things. It drives the outcome that you're looking for, helping them develop that writing style, whatever it is, helping them be able to articulate whatever the content piece is that you're looking for. So you win on both fronts. It makes it easier for you to assess it, when you look at it, and makes it easier for them to understand exactly what they're writing for. But it moves it from that assignment piece to a contextual, which,
Okay.
I mean, if the one complaint I hear from students when I teach is, where's the context? Why are we doing this? Where's it fit? In the bigger puzzle, where's this thing go? When they see the rubric, it's like, oh, yep, I understand. I got the grade I got because you know what? I didn't bother to go back and check my grammar and and spelling.
check. Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
So you can say, here you go, and they can look at it again and go, yeah, I didn't pay attention to that. Okay, well, maybe the opportunity exists to redo it again so they can fix that, or the next time they'll go, yeah, I need to focus in on those 3 things that she dinged me for. I mean, it becomes much more obvious, and it helps you as a teacher, from the teaching end, because that it's not that you're teaching to a particular content piece, but you're teaching for those outcomes. You're looking for specific things for them to walk away with, which probably build to something, further down the road that, hey, maybe 5 assignments from now, you're not going to be doing topic sentences because hopefully they would have gotten to that point,
Yeah.
and so it helps them move forward, helps you move forward.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because I guess I make them write academic, it's APA style, because that's my style, and that's what CLA uses for the most part. But I don't think the English department, they use MLA, but their writing department is the MLA. And I'm like, if most of us in CLA are use APA, I've heard that they're learning to use APA, but it doesn't. They're not connecting. But I haven't been up there lately because I have my students and I give them examples. I give them links because I do a lot of the work for them. And really, what I really want is like write academically, just and in text citation, because I don't want you copying. I want you to tell me did you get this in the book, or
one thing you can do, and rubric is one way to get you toward this goal.
Yeah.
Another way is to, if you have students from past classes who have handed in particularly nice pieces, trim off the headers and their name and and say, there's a couple, 2 or 3, and you find some different examples, different ways to get to the same end.
Okay.
And just say, hey, here's some examples of the kind of thing I'm looking for.
Okay.
Because if students don't know, they don't know.
Right. Or you could even provide a sample, break them into groups and have them identify it, to come back and say, okay, within your group, talk about it, figure out what's the topic sentence here. Everybody has a marker. Great. Let's, mark it up and then we'll go back and talk about it. We'll put it up and say, okay, and that way, I mean, they're then in that process. They're actually in the process of you doing what you would do. And it's enlightening to them to go, oh, now I get it. So, I mean, that's, like Owen said, there are other ways to approach that kind of a problem with students.
Oh, okay. Yeah. But one thing in particular I have that I don't think other instructors do, I don't know. I shouldn't say that. That's a broad statement. But I like them to bring in their stories to the assignments. And I don't know if I should actually put that on my rubric, because some students may not have, but they have their thoughts about certain aspects, because I like them to bring themselves. I want the assignments to be meaningful to them. So
Sure.
So yeah. But I also, and it's also very interesting to me, because I'm grading, but I don't know if I should actually add that to the rubric. I think I will, because I like their thoughts, their experiences, and to share because my work is subjective. I don't do objective stuff.
Yeah.
So I don't think, well, anyway, I'm not going to go into any philosophy, but
you can objectively assess if someone is thinking about and understanding or analyzing the things you're asking them to read. Are they making the connections you want them to make? Are they making connections at all? If they're just regurgitating what they read, that's not getting there. If that's your objective, if your objective is to regurgitate, then that's okay. Just depends on what your objective is.
Well, see,
Because there are
there's-
disciplines where regurgitation is important.
Yeah.
You need to memorize this periodic table. You need to memorize the Krebs cycle. You need to memorize, and there's a lot of stuff people need to memorize. But if you really want people getting at and struggling with hard concepts and making their own connections.
I just want them to kind of start thinking about something they haven't thought about,
See?
especially in my classes. But I think what I do is I ask the questions. I do ask questions for every assignment because those are where my quizzes kind of go in. So the students that answer the questions, because there's going to be some kind of format for them to kind of relate back when I do ask my questions in the quizzes.
Right.
And sometimes the quizzes are what makes or breaks the students actually. It's sort of like, because I don't like grading. Because I don't really have a rubric, but I think I really develop something that's more, that they understand that I don't feel bad about having to.
And the internet can be a friend there. You can Google around for rubric examples. There's millions of them out there.
Okay.
Essay rubrics, reflection rubric, whatever, critical thinking rubric, whatever you want to find.
Okay.
You can borrow pieces and parts.
Somebody's got one that you can definitely look at and tweak to make it fit for what you're doing. So.
And what I've done is I've done voice threads, for us instead of papers. So I don't really quite know how to read. I've pretty much have looked at them and I tell them what I want, but I probably need to make a rubric for voice thread final projects. So if they have them out there,
I'm sure that somebody's got something that pertains to it.
And I also want peer reviews. I want the students to grade them too. So it's like sort of like everything I do online is I try to make it interactive, and have students teach each other. So I don't really like final papers. Although I think now I'm teaching 600, I'm going to have to do final papers. So yeah. But I think the class I'm developing, I'm trying to make it a 400 and 600 level, because I've taught at 400, but because I'm teaching in a graduate school level now, I have to make it a 600 level. So that's going to be a little bit challenging for me to get it through the system, because I don't really know. Actually, this is good. I don't know if you're the person that I could ask. Is like, there must be some kind of rubric out there that teaches me how to develop courses for 400 and 600 levels. Like, I'm like, what do I do that's different for 600 level?
Yeah, I think that there are institutional guidelines for what, definitely talk to the faculty senate folks about what that should contain, and I'm sure that those are out there. Talk to your colleagues, and we can help facilitate that conversation some on our end too if you need to.
Okay, thank you.
So thanks for coming to learn about Quality Matters. If you have any questions, let me know, or let Chris Watt know, and happy to work with us. You can keep those materials and definitely look through them. Definitely look through them, and
I'm wondering if I could take another one for another colleague of mine. I can drop off just upstairs, because I'm trying to encourage him to come to more of these, but he might be swamped with.
Sure.
All right, thank you so much.
Great. Well, Polly, thanks for coming, and Owen,
You're welcome.
thanks for taking some time to share.
Yeah.
So
thanks for having me.
absolutely glad to be doing Quality Matters.
Great.
Awesome.
Thank you.
I guess my biggest question is, why do we have Quality Matters?
It's mostly if it's of interest to you.
No, I mean, why is it? Well, I don't know how to ask the question, but why is it necessary to have Quality Matters?
It's not necessary.
Okay.
It appeals to some faculty because they want to have someone else look at their materials, their course design, and have that external feedback or maybe internal feedback in that framework on the design, or they want this external certification or credential because it's important to them either career-wise or politically, or they feel they want to make sure that their students are having this particular framework evaluate their course.
All good reasons.
Those are all
Thank
good
you.
reasons. Yeah. Okay.
All right.
Great. Thanks for coming.
Yeah.